Sick thoughts. Sick thoughts. Now, I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, um, shouting at the top of my lungs, telling you the world is going to end, while you walk by and say that I'm crazy. And that's okay. Every day that goes by, um, people are starting to see the light, I guess. And when people when people see the light, it's pretty much too late to act upon it. Um, I said this once and I'll say it again. You know, movies, video games, TV shows. I guess you could put in music videos in there too, or just music in general. You know, they try to warn us and give us a message on what's going around us every day. And now it's a little too late. So, no matter what we do in life, there's always some sort of discrimination. The two main biggest discrimination that we as a society face right now is financial discrimination and racial discrimination. Now, there's there's a class of rich people. I mean, like filthy rich, like Trump rich, Bezos rich, Zuckerberg rich, filthy rich. A group of people that have that kind of wealth from being Arabic, Indian, American, Native American, maybe, um, from all walks of life. You see peasants like me and you, we're discriminating each other for small and selfish reasons, mainly because of race. But there's a rich Asian, a rich Japanese person, and a rich Chinese person that completely get along, and the average Chinese person or Korean person or any Asian person, I think Japan, when it comes to Asia, Japan is like collectively hated because of what they did in World War II. And that's fine. Um, the rich people are going to let them argue with one another because the rich people have other things in mind. And whatever happened in 1945 does not concern them. So what I'm getting at is like to the average peasant like me and you, where seeing those group of people hang out with each other is a little unheard of, because from where we standing from outside looking in, you know, it's hard for us to imagine them hanging out with each other because we as peasants are arguing about something different while their struggle is completely different from ours. When we see, no, that's a bad example. What I'm trying to get at is that these rich people are orchestrating everything in our lives, from what we think about, where we work, what we do, what we eat. It's all orchestrated by them. While they're playing puppet master, we are the puppets. And some people, like myself, see that. They see it. I see it. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that I could do about it because I am probably 5, maybe 10 out of a billion people that are aware of what's going on, while others are still face down and not looking up and seeing the world around them. So when people say war this, war that, we have to keep in mind that war is mainly brought about by rich people. What, 80 years or so ago, where people fought wars, it was for a reason, but now we're fighting wars over frivolous things. These frivolous things could be talked over, but as peasants, we're put in a position where we don't want to fight, but circumstances makes us have to fight. When most people imagine war, they imagine war as in World War II. So when World War III comes around, which it will, there's definitely going to be nuclear fallout for sure. Why is nuclear fallout a big deal? It's a big deal because it's definitely a population reducer. Because, the start of it was 9/11. Before 9/11, there was talks about how the US was trillions of dollars in debt, and then 9/11 came, and all of a sudden the topic went out the window. We're paying all these taxes. We're paying taxes for the food that we eat. We're paying taxes on property that we own, such as our cars that is all paid off. The houses that we build or didn't build, we just bought it. And even though we own it on paper, we're still paying taxes on that. We're paying taxes for our clothing. We're paying taxes for everything. And those taxes are going to wherever it's going to, but it's definitely not going to building our infrastructures. What our tax money is going to It's going to building bunkers for the rich elite. And when I mean like rich, I mean I'm not talking about six figures rich. I'm not talking about Jay-Z, Beyonce, 50 Cent, Eminem. I'm talking about like almost close enough to the Rothschild rich. You know, not multi-million, but multi-billions. And on paper, there's not a lot of billionaires, but um on paper there's not, but in reality there are. I would say um if you take all the billionaires in the world, men and women, and I guess you could say children too if you want to count their inheritance, but all the billionaires in the world takes up the size takes up the is the size of I want to say Rhode Island. Rhode Island is a small state, but if you fill that whole entire state with human beings from border to border, if you think about it, that's a lot of billionaires around the world. So these billionaires, they're building bunkers for a nuclear fallout. We are not prepared for a nuclear fallout because we're worried about eggs. We're worried about not being late for work. We're worried about trying to find work. We're worried about a border. We're worried about deportation. We're worried about hot teachers making love with students and getting arrested. Pete Diddy. We are worried about the wrong things and not focusing on the things that's happening around us in real time. When you see someone with a tinfoil hat that I'm wearing right now talking this stuff, you look at it, you say that I'm unhinged, you say that I need help, but when I speak about it and then you see something unfold, you're like, okay, I guess he was right. He talked about this many weeks ago, many months ago, many years ago, and here I am unprepared. Also, keep this in mind. America is one of the last. I could say we're one of the at least top five, maybe seven countries that citizens could legally buy a firearm. Most other countries like Australia, which is a first world country, and I guess Japan and China and even France, Germany too, first world countries, they successfully disarmed the citizens so they can't defend ourselves. Now, remember what I told you that, music, TV shows, movies, you know, they send you a message without blatantly trying telling you to send you a message. Like I'm sending you a message, like I'm directly sending you a message. I'm not giving you a show that's making you think like, wow, will the government really do this? Well, the government the government itself, they definitely have a way to manipulating people. Australia, a gun buyback program, or a mandatory gun buyback program. The show called um The 100 is another example. I watch it. I watched it like at least like 4 or 5 times over. But before I get to that, let me get back on the gun thing. So when it comes to guns, it's for defending ourselves from obviously a tyrannical government. Our forefathers from the 1700s foresaw this, all this coming about. And if we take away guns, where the rich controls what we do, because the rich people was in the French Revolution, the rich people was trying to take over America and make it a colony in this, in 1775 and 6. You know, if a citizen is able to defend itself, then the people that have a lot of wealth can't control that the peasants like you and me. And that's just the truth behind it. So if a nuclear fallout does come and some of the peasants happen to survive, keep in mind there's going to be less peasants and more wealthy people. And the wealthy people, they're the ones who have the guns because they're stockpiling it all in their bunker. They have, there's literally an underground bunker that's the size of Dallas. And Dallas is ginormous. So all their friends, all their families, and families of families, and friends of families, they're all when it does come, they're all going to gather into that bunker, and they're going to live out the nuclear fallout until it's time to resurface. And when they resurface, they're going to have arms while we are still scavenging for expired cans and radiated water. And if they take away the guns now, after the nuclear fallout, we'll have nothing to defend ourselves against. So, everything that I'm saying is, it's kind of far fetched. It is. I remember, when I lived in Connecticut, like, I'm pro Second Amendment, but when I lived in Connecticut, I was highly pro Second Amendment because I lived in a place where in real time, I saw my rights, constantly being stripped away, and I forgot where I was going with this. Hold on. Okay, now I remember. So in real time, I was seeing my rights, slowly getting stripped away. And, when you're into something, naturally you subscribe. They're like, hey, this is what you do when SHFT, hits the fan. So they was like, yeah, buy a gas mask, or a gas mask with a filter, because you might need that for nuclear fallout. Buy a radiation suit, buy a bulletproof vest, buy a a water straw so you could drink water from a puddle without getting contaminations. And I was getting into all that, and the person I was living with at the time was like, hey, I'm not going to be eating MREs and everything like that. And I'm like, I get that. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm buying these MREs for myself because you just never know. And as a conspiracy theorist, because I ain't gonna lie to you, I am a conspiracy theorist. I see, I see, I'm still awake. It's been at least 36 hours since I've slept. So my mind is all over the place, and I'm trying to concentrate on things that I'm trying to say. But hold on. Okay, now I remember. So yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I've been for a long time. And with these conspiracies, they slowly start to unravel itself. And as I'm getting into these conspiracies, hold on again, I lost my thought. I'm sorry. 2030, the year 2030. There we go. Okay. So as I'm unraveling these conspiracy theories, they're like, 2030 is going to be a major year. Now, just like that movie 2012, where the world literally ended and we were all waiting until the world ended, because that movie came out in 2010, 2011, with John Cusack. Whatever happened to him? I'm sure he's retired by now. But 2012 came about and nothing happened, earthly wise at least. And then I keep seeing signs for 2030. The government saying they want to do this by 2030, they want to do that by 2030. Why is 2030 such a significant year? And the only thing that I can think of for 2030 is that there's going to be a huge reset. Also, on the dollar bill, it says one world order. So maybe it's a reset to have one world order where we all collectively become one government or something like that, or we all I don't know. I really don't know. Or maybe that's when a nuclear fallout is going to happen in 2030. Maybe World War III will start in 2029 because, Trump is going to be out of office, 24, 25, 26, 28. So 29, a new president is officially sworn into office in 2029. Maybe Trump might start a war in his term, which will evolve into World War III. Then a new president comes in, but it's too late. Then they're firing off missiles and rockets and nukes. And mind you, There's bunkers already in place. It is. It's already there. So the bunker is already the bunkers for the rich people is already in place. It's there already. You know, the rich people, they know what's going on before we obviously know what's going on. So with that being said, what are we to do? We can prepare ourselves as best as we can. Cities, you know, obviously New York, LA, Houston, Dallas, Chicago, Denver, Colorado, all those big, high densely populated areas will be targeted. But not only will that be targeted, but missile silos, because um there's missile silos in Nebraska, as far as I know. I don't know about any other states, but I definitely know Nebraska will be targeted because, if they're going to fire a missile, they want to disable our missiles so we won't retaliate and fire back, and so on and so forth. So, and the nukes that's from World War II, it's definitely evolved since then. You know, um, Hiroshima is like child's play compared to what we have now. Now, as messed up as this sounds, you know, I don't mind a reset, but not in a nuclear way. Like they were I guess you could say they were onto something when it came to COVID. They were onto something, but it didn't work because, they wanted people to stay inside, and they wanted to pick us off one by one, and people who have respiratory problems, diabetes, or any other illnesses um, are susceptible to catching COVID. It wasn't acting fast enough. So the only other thing they could do now to thin the population is a nuclear fallout. Now, if you're paying attention and if you care, you know, what would you do or where would you go? Well, obviously, living on the East Coast or the West Coast is probably not the best idea because it's those states that are on the coast are obviously densely populated. So the best thing to do is probably move inward towards the country. Nebraska's out of the question because there's missile silos there. So, I would say north or even Mexico. Um, North, like South Dakota, maybe, or even North Dakota, Idaho, probably. Um, Somewhere rural, but at the same time, if you're well supplied and you're able to find shelter, you could go out and loot some places. So the rich people are smart, like I have to, I have to give them credit where it's due. You know, they're not dumb. They definitely know how to pit us against each other. Because even if there are people that survive the nuclear fallout, you know, they're still going to blame it on a whole entire different country because it's the show that's that's called Fallout. Obviously, it's on Amazon. Um, it was revealed that America bombed itself. They blamed it on ironically China, who in the show we were at war with them, and when the nuclear fallout came, you know the bombs came and it pretty much wiped out the whole entire population, and they put the blame on China when in reality it was America itself that bombed itself. That's a perfect example of shows, movies, music and all that stuff giving us subliminal messages that's probably pretty accurate. On top of that, if we survive the nuclear fallout, we we will obviously think that it was someone else that did it when it's really our own people. And there's going to be people who survive it that will definitely believe that. Now, if I survive it, I'm going to know better and be like, hey, it's our own government. It's the rich people that did this to us. Unfortunately, the rest is too blind to see that. Now, that's just my mindset. There could be thousands, hundred thousands of people that will also survive the nuclear fallout. And because we're so used to putting the blame on each other, because we're so used to being divided, we're going to put the blame on each other. We're going to say liberal this, right wing that, Nazi this, fascist that, left versus right, red versus blue. While we survive this nuclear fallout, we're still going to be fighting each other over the most smallest and frivolous things. While the rich people are still in their bunker with their own farm. I seen, oh my God, they have a whole entire town. They own their own farm ecosystem, all that. They have all that. So not only did they thin the population, not only will they thin the population, but if we survive the nuclear fallout, we're going to thin ourselves out even more. That is crazy. I just I just wish we could, wake up. I mean, I'm woke. Like your definition of woke is completely different from my definition of woke. My definition of woke is is wearing the tinfoil hat. Uh, my definition of woke is wearing the tinfoil hat and telling people what's going on while everyone else is like, um, the Cheesecake Factory is not an ideal date. Shannon Sharp is a PDF file because he's dating or paying for a 20-year-old. Or whatever her name is, Ross, is dating younger men, Diddy in jail, Epstein files. Like, we're distracted. Like, don't you see that with memes? Short video reels that have nothing to do with anything productive. They just make reels to make reels and to get likes and shares and views. You know, when I lived in Connecticut, if I, and that's the one thing I don't like about myself is like, I don't, stick to my gut plan because I'm like, because at the time I was like, okay, maybe buying a gas mask is not ideal at the time. Maybe I should focus on ammunition. And then I get distracted by something else. And then I get distracted by something else. I get distracted by something else. And next thing you know, I'm unprepared. I'm somewhat prepared because, I have my rifle, I have my gun, I have my bulletproof vest, but I still don't have my mask. I still don't have my CB radio. I still don't have the thing that you turn, the light. Also the radio that you turn to listen to, radio stations. I don't have that. I don't have the straw. I don't have a lot of these things. But between now and 2030, and hopefully to God, it's just another 2012 where it's all a hoax and nothing significant will happen. But between now and 2030, I have 5 years to get ready when shit actually hits the fan. Also keep in mind that these tariffs is only a start to our supplies being limited. It's only a start. Because I've been to Walmart and the food section, not only is the food section small, but it's also expensive too. Last year it was expensive, but there was a lot of food that you could choose from. But now the shelves are getting a little bit empty. There's a little bit less to choose from now. Go to your local Stop and Shop, Walmart, Target, wherever you get your food. Just take a look at it now. And then the next month that you go, compare it. Compare it. Because you'll see that the supplies that were there are starting to like dwindle away. What time is it? Almost time for work. Okay. So yeah, the moral of the story is that rich people are definitely getting ready for a nuclear fallout. They have bunkers. They don't like us. When it happens, we're not accepted. They don't want us in. They don't want no black guy with no education. They don't want no OnlyFans model. They don't want no YouTuber, no influencer. They don't want none of that. They want a whole entire reset. So, um, what I might do, which I doubt. So the best thing that I could do right now is at least get the supplies, and if I'm lucky enough in the next 2 3 years from now, is to buy like some land and like build a bunker that way. That's the only way. But I have been looking at other videos, and they said that if you do live in a house and you have a basement, you could essentially survive a nuclear fallout in your basement. But once when the blast happens and you happen to survive the blast and you survive the nukes falling, you should definitely like throw away your clothes, like throw it away completely, shower immediately, you know, don't use conditioner, don't. Um, but like wash your body. Don't scrub too hard because not that we could see it with the naked eye, but if you scrub your body too hard, um, it causes like microscopic like abrasions and like radiation could like seep through your body that way. Also, if the first symptoms of radiation sickness uh is feeling lightheaded and dizzy and vomiting. So if you're experiencing that, um, because I think the radiation goes through your thyroid or something like that, and once when that happens, you're practically dead. But if you have, I forgot what it's called, iodine or something like that, iodine pills, you take some of those, and it will hold you off until you have to keep taking the doses. But what I'm trying to say is like, if you're in a basement and you're able to seal yourself off, so having a furnished basement is probably your best bet. And if you have a basement and it's sealed off, you could stay in there for a week. I heard that it'll take at least a month or so for all the chaos to like subside, and that's when all the looting and scavenging starts to happen, like the video game Fallout and the movie or the TV show Fallout. But um, but yeah, just keep your head on a swivel from there and do your best, and good luck to you. This is a long video. It's 45 minutes long, but at least I warned you what's going on.